Well, all you housewives must know how difficult it is when corned beefs become a luxury and supermarket bills are rocketing to find a snack that's both cheap and nourishing when the kiddies come tumbling in from school. Well, you know, as our parents discovered during the war, if you just know where to look, there are a great many things around the house which we would normally waste, which can be turned into a filling and nourishing snack. Take Pussy, for example. Oh, my goodness me, no, I can hear some of you saying. Not faithful old Pussy, who we think of as part of the family. But, you know, if we are to see a better tomorrow, this is no time for sentiment. Almost everything we eat has some sort of feeling toward the human race. Experiments have shown that plants respond to both love and rejection, and a professor from Boston, Mass. Has predicted that before the end of the century, a turnip could run for president. So let's think of Pussy happily serving the greater good. Now, to avoid unnecessary suffering, see if you can encourage her to sleep for a week or two on the chopping board. This will mean a few whiskers in the sandwiches, but it does mean that you can creep up one evening and chop. The head can be off almost before Pussy knows it, and it is probably the least nourishing and useful part of the beast. Now, many people find the fur unappetizing and inclined to stick between the teeth. So I find the simplest way is to give Pussy a good old-fashioned shave with plenty of lather. And don't worry, it'll wash off afterward and it won't affect the taste. And long, steady strokes there of the razor. It's best to cook in the same way as your favorite chicken recipe, but you may find that the flesh has a slightly fishy flavor. And I recommend pinches of sage, thyme and fennel to taste. The tail is a particular delicacy and is best eaten by pulling the flesh off between the teeth. They're rather like asparagus. Yeah, and the paws are probably best deep-fried and served as TV snacks. They're a jolly good nibble, and afterwards the claws can make a jolly attractive bracelet. Good. Well, now that doesn't help us towards solving the Sunday roast problem for the recession family. But I wonder how many of you have thought seriously about Granny. Now, most grandmothers have come through hard times themselves and probably welcome this opportunity to bridge the generation gap, a particularly difficult problem for many old people who so often these days want to play an integral part in family activities rather than feeling old and in the way. Now, the first step is, of course, death. And it's best not to follow the Pussy method here, as most old ladies are not comfortable sleeping on the chopping board, and the decapitation makes it so much more difficult to cook Granny in her own juices. Most chefs today would recommend the pillow over the face as the quickest and cleanest method. And over here, I have a Granny who I've prepared in this way earlier in the evening. Now, you'll notice that I've placed a handkerchief over the face here, as many people find the facial discoloration distasteful, and the protruding tongue and starting eyes do tend to put people off their food, and that's the last thing we want in the kitchen, eh? Now, some families, particularly where there's a working mum, feel that a meal must not only be satisfying, but quickly and easily prepared, and they favour pushing the old lady into hot fat and then dipping her into a savoury sauce. Now, I have nothing at all against this Granny fondue, but I find it far more economical, if you have time, to make a cut from the groin up to the sternum or breastbone, like so, and remove the giblets, and then fill the inside with the stuffing, which I prepared earlier this evening. Plenty of breadcrumbs and onion there. And then, that's it, make nice tidy stitching. That's it. And then roast in an oven at gas mark 4, allowing about 20 minutes or so for every pound. Best to check, Granny, a week or so before, as obviously we don't want the family waiting for their dinner until the evening and probably being dragged away from a favourite television programme. Any leftovers can, of course, be made into senior citizen sandwiches, and if there's too much, I'm sure that Meals on Wheels or Help the Aged would take some off your hands, and the giblets can be boiled up and fed to the cat, thrown away. Well, that's all we have time for, and I hope you'll join us next week for a special takeaway food recipe, Kidnapper's Kebab. Till then, ciao and bon appetit.
Delicious. When we first played that about a year ago, several people asked about the record, and I'm afraid Keith died before we ever got that project together. But there was a chance to hear the tape again.